Fantastic, man. Well, hey, I'm ready to get started and we'll get the show on the road here. What do you say?
Hey, I'm down for it. Let's go.
Let's go, man. Well, with that being said, hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Results Loading Podcast hosted by Prosperous AI. I'm, of course, your host, Michael Atkin, and today we have a absolutely fantastic guest who is a true innovator in the supply chain world. Our guest, and he'll tell you more about this in a moment, has over 19 years of experience tackling complex supply chain challenges and is currently the Director of Distribution Operations at the Carl Star Group. From quality assurance and safety protocols to AI integration and sustainability initiatives, he's seen and done it all. I'm very, very excited to welcome Emeka Njoku to the show today. Emeka, welcome. Thanks so much for being on, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Great energy, man. Great to meet you, Michael.
Yeah, likewise, man. Looking forward to this one for sure.
Yes,
And I'll throw it back to you. So, Emeka, you and I talked a little bit about what the premise of the Results Loading podcast is a few times. I want to take us back to the beginning. Tell us a little bit about what you were like as a kid. What were your interests? What did you really, I can't imagine you had a deep fascination in logistics and operations from the start. What were you dreaming of then? How did we get to where we are now? I'll throw it to you and you can take us through that.
Well, going way back, well, uh, I had two wonderful parents, Mr. Kenneth and Pauline Njoku, who interestingly met in South Carolina, but actually got married in Atlanta. And then they relocated back to Nigeria. And after they relocated back to Nigeria, I was born in Nigeria. So I grew up in Nigeria, went to, we say, primary and secondary school. So, went to middle school and high school in Nigeria. And after that, I moved to the US. And when I moved to the US, prior to that, honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. I at some point I wanted to be an aeronautic engineer. I wanted to be a chemical engineer. I wanted to be a pharmacist. I dabbled in different fields trying to figure out what I wanted to do because I enjoyed all these different subjects. Fast forward now. Like I'm a mentor now, so I'm able to help some people decide. But when I was coming up, I didn't have that opportunity to be able to pick. So I took the PCAT to be a pharmacist. I passed it. This was after I moved to the US. I took the PCAT, passed it. I was going to go to the pharmacy route, volunteered as a pharmacist. And after a week, I was like, this is not for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that that was not what I wanted to do.
Pharmacy wasn't going to be it. Okay, so we check it off the list.
Yes, I love them all. I love all my pharmacist friends, but that just wasn't me. So I continued to explore. I actually volunteered in a pharmacy for that 1 week to get the experience, and I knew that's not what I wanted to do. So after I took a bunch of prerequisites, I enjoyed physics, I enjoyed math, and I enjoyed all these different classes, but I still couldn't decide. So I was just researching one day, and I looked up industrial engineering. And it was such an open engineering field because I had tried to be a chemical engineer, aeronautic engineer, electrical engineer, all these kinds of engineering, including pharmacy, which my Nigerian dad told me that I was going to be, and it just wasn't for me. So when I looked up industrial engineering, it was very interesting to me, and I wanted to take a shot. So I went on the website, Southern Polytechnic State University, and I applied, and I got accepted, and that was how I ended up becoming an industrial engineer. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so that was an interesting path for me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And sometimes you just kind of end up in a path that's very unexpected, of course. I mean, that's really, I hear that story a lot. I think that's applicable to even my career journey. And sometimes, those end up being blessing in disguises, if you will. You don't really know. You knew right away you didn't want to do, pharmaceuticals or work as a pharmacist, right? But industrial engineering was kind of calling your name, and here you are, 2 decades almost later, and it's been working out for you, right?
Yeah, and it's amazing because I went into that industrial engineering. It was a moment in my life where I took a leap of faith, like because I really didn't know. But just because someone did a fantastic job in writing I don't want to say the curriculum or the job description, if you will, of what an industrial engineer was. That really intrigued me. So I went that path. And what's interesting about it is, as I went along that path, doors just started opening, right? Even after taking a few classes, I felt like I was home. I felt like I was where I was supposed to be, although I didn't know what was going to happen in the future, but I felt like I was home. And then I got two internships at a time, one with Avon Products and one with a very large aerospace company in Savannah, Georgia, that builds private jets. But I ended up going with Avon Products because I wanted to get into supply chain, to understand all the bits and pieces that took place in supply chain. So that's how it kind of worked out.
Yeah, so take us down that road a little bit deeper. I mean, you're doing industrial engineering, you think you figured out what you really like doing, and then all of a sudden, I want to go into supply chain. Like, where did this supply chain element come into play? Why is that really the direction you wanted to go? Obviously, now at the Carlstar Group, you're managing and directing distribution operations. Obviously, goes hand in hand with supply chain, I'm sure. So what, how did you not really pivot, but did you really harness your skills as an industrial engineer to go and have that advantage going into supply chain? I mean, what was the thought process there?
Man, I was extremely lucky. That's just all I can say. I was extremely lucky. That was a phenomenal internship opportunity for me. I started that internship, I believe it was back in 2005, summer 2005. I made the decision to go with Avon Products. Started that internship. It was, I think, like a 350 to 450,000 square feet warehouse. I worked on a few what I would call continuous improvement projects. And in doing those continuous improvement projects, I just remember us, like, the first time we saved $50,000. It was just, oh my goodness. Like, it was a great feeling as an intern, and then, partnering with the industrial engineer that was on site. And the next time we had the opportunity to save about $500,000. I'm like, oh my God, I could really do this, for a living. And then after coming back, so it was supposed to be a summer internship. It went from summer to me having a part-time job. And it went from a part-time job to me ending up working there for like 2 years. And then it went from me working there 2 years to me receiving a job offer for a full-time position 6 months before I graduated college. So I was just extremely lucky and blessed that everything just fell in place and it just worked out that way.
Well, you made your own luck. I mean, obviously they wouldn't have offered you any sort of role if they didn't see the potential, right? So yeah, lucky, right place, right time. But also if you're killing it at work, you went from saving $50,000 on one project all the way to 10xing that up to 500K. Not only does it feel good and it kind of gets you obsessed with the role and with the day-to-day, but also obviously the employer is going, man, this guy may be onto something. We probably want to lock this guy down once he gets done with school, right?
Yes, and it was so amazing because after that 500K in savings, I was like, man, I gotta go get my green belt in continuous improvement. So I had the opportunity to get my green belt in continuous improvement before I actually graduated. So while I was graduating here, young industrial engineering graduating, I already had a green belt in industrial engineering. I had real world experience about what I wanted to do, and my first gig was to be what's called slotting, or it was someone who pretty much analyzed all the inventory in a warehouse. So it was a slotting role that also had inventory responsibility. So I was responsible for all the inventory in the building. I was responsible for moving the inventory in the building in the right locations to get the right efficiency out of the building. So it really kind of zoned in. It's interesting because you learn this stuff in school, and then at the same time, I had the opportunity to practice as I went. So it was a phenomenal experience. It was great. I did that for about 6 months. And, shout out to Avon Products. Shout out to my first manager, Med Watkins, who saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. So after 6 months, I went to her and I was like, oh, Meg, I want to do something different. I feel like this role is not for me. She was like, yeah, Mecca, you like people, you like being in front of people, you like getting stuff done. I want to try you in another role. And I was like, okay, I'm up for it. I want to learn. And that was my introduction to being a supervisor. And she put me as a supervisor on the production floor. And the 3 to 4 years after that, I just rotated in different roles. Like I was just from transportation to inventory management to station lighting, MAS to bulk, small orders, like mechanical assembly, transportation. I was rotated in every supervisory role, receiving all of it. In a distribution center, and that just gave me an extra edge in learning it from the ground up, and it just ended up being a blessing in disguise. And man, I'm just so grateful that I had so many mentors at the time that kind of guided me in the right direction and also helped me push myself to try new things. And it was just an amazing time, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously having that mentor who has your best interest at heart as well, when you go to her and say, hey, I want to try something else, and then she just sets the table for you. Like, okay, I already know this guy pretty well. I know what he's good at. And there's a whole world of possibilities, especially in operations, of course, as in terms of opportunities and things for you to do. And you just start checking things off the list. Okay, transportation done. Okay, manufacturing done. And all of a sudden you have this whole world of experience because a mentor is looking out for you. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had individuals such as yourself on here, accomplished individuals like such as yourself, who accredits the intelligence and experience that you've attained from an early age to a mentor who set the table for you and gave you an opportunity to go and really elevate your ceiling, right? Because without this woman, I mean, what would have happened without that conversation? She even, to take it a step further, she created an environment in which you could go and have that conversation with her in the first place, and you felt comfortable saying, hey, I want to do something else, right? I mean, it's like a win-win right there with her and her keeping an eye on you.
Yes, and it's crazy because the guy who was training me in my first analyst role, like he also saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So as much as he trained me for that role, he thought that I would be better off, serving the organization in a different role, which is okay sometimes. It's just one of those things that it happens sometimes in your career. Mine happened a little earlier on in terms of like everyone around me wanted me to lead people, but I didn't. It was like I started out not leading people. I started out as an individual contributor and then kind of grew into leadership roles. And then after that, what was interesting was I now moved from Atlanta to a place called Zanesville, Ohio, which is it was a huge culture shock. And not only was it a huge culture shock, I was also assuming responsibility for a second and third shift operation, which was completely different from what I was used to. And this is all in operations. So just having that opportunity to partner with mentors, have new bosses that had my best interests at heart, I think is just something that I always pay forward, because a lot of people have been really, really great to me in terms of helping me navigate the difficulties in my career. And I want to make sure that I'm always giving back and helping other people make those decisions that's best for them and their career as they continue on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Because look what it did for you when you had a mentor who kept an eye on you and had your best interest at heart. I mean, look at the skyrocket of a career trajectory you ended up having because you were in that environment.
Yes.
So it sounds like everyone, throughout your career so far has been saying, oh, Emeka, we want you to lead people. It seems like you have this people element about you naturally. Obviously, I'm really enjoying our conversation right now, for example, as we speak. I've only been talking for 15-ish minutes. Where did that personality side come from? And how are you, if you could take us a little bit deeper into how you're paying forward the mentorship elements in your career now? I mean, how are you taking the mentorship that you've experienced, then passing it forward, if you will, onto people who look up to you, for example, now and given where you're at in your career at this time?
Yeah, personality wise, it's quite interesting because I have both of my parents, none of them are shy. My dad is a is a Nigerian Igbo man, very proud, always try to start some kind of business, very entrepreneurial in terms of spirit. So always interacting. I always kind of describe my dad as a used car salesman. Like he always had that ability to like interact with people, right?
Yeah.
And also on the other side, my mom is, she's retired now, but she is a retired principal of a secondary school, which is an equivalent of a high school here in the US, and was in education, her entire career, over 30 years in education in Nigeria. Dad Nigerian and mom Cameroonian. So if you know anything about Nigerians are typically the louder ones. So Nigerians are always loud, are very expressive, and never shy. So I guess that's what I would say. I'm a proud Igbo Nigerian man. That would attribute to me never being shy about people. But in terms of now being able to
Emeka, real quick, sorry to interrupt you, but
Okay.
there's something I want to key in on real quick before we move
Okay.
on to the mentorship spot. Can you tell us a little bit about coming to the US from Nigeria? How old were you? What was that like coming to the United States, being born in Nigeria? Can you walk us through that element of proud Nigerians a little bit more and kind of explain the meaning behind that and the impact that it's had on you? Obviously, your dad is an excellent representation of that, but talk to us a little bit about your experience coming over to the US at whatever age that was and the impact it had on kind of who you are today.
Yes, I count myself as someone who was extremely lucky in terms of, having that option or opportunity to migrate from Nigeria to the United States to pursue my dreams. Growing up in Nigeria, I had very humble beginnings, but at the same time, I was a happy kid. It was interesting because 25 years later, had a reunion with a couple of my friends. We all met here in Mexico, probably 2 or 3 months ago, for another friend's wedding. It was interesting to kind of talk through how we all competed against each other. And in terms of competing against each other, we had this group of 3 or 4 friends who would always rank first, second, third, fourth. And, fast forward, 25 or, 30 years later, here we are meeting, with our families internationally, So I had a, great childhood. Obviously, there's some opportunities in terms of how, Nigeria as a country could improve in terms of leadership and all those things. That's a totally complete, podcast or episode on itself.
Yeah.
But overall, for me, I had a great childhood. I was very well provided for. I'm very thankful to have, been born by my parents, raised, and also had the opportunity to come to the United States to get, not just realize the American dream, but also be able to, get the great education that I've had over the years. So in terms of playing that forward from a mentorship standpoint, I enjoy it. I've worked through organizations like Umibo Unite, which empowers community both in Nigeria and here. I've been the president for about 2 different years, and I continue to support that organization. I also work with organizations like Braven, where we mentor, young students, in universities like Clark Atlanta, some of the universities here in the Atlanta area, to help them polish themselves in terms of how they present themselves when they come to the job market. MedShare, United Way, all different organizations. I love to volunteer because through volunteering and through a lot of great people who volunteered their time, I've been able to benefit from it. So I like to play it forward. So I've done partnerships with University of Georgia to coach, capstone students in project management. and deliver on continuous improvement initiatives. I've worked with the university, Kennesaw State University as well, my alma mater, to coach students and give back, and also make sure that, as students do their end of year projects, that we are providing that mentorship and guidance that I wish somebody would have given to me at that time. So instead of just sitting back and complaining, I want to do something about it. So I partner with these different universities, Georgia Tech and some of the other universities in the Atlanta area, to make sure that we're working with the professors to define the curriculum. What are the skills that the next set of industrial engineers need to have so that they can be 10 times more prepared than I was coming into the industry.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fantastic. And the more people that exist like you, the better, because with hands-on application and people going into the classrooms and actually speaking and helping share some of those insights that maybe you weren't privy to when you were in school, you're exponentially increasing their chances of being successful and getting those tips and tricks that you now have, but didn't because there weren't Emekas going in and doing what you do. And it's really great. I mean, are there specific groups or that of people that you're targeting that you're trying to specifically help? Are they just industrial engineers just across the board? I mean, who are you really, really targeting in terms of what you're bringing to the table and trying to make a difference in their lives, especially at the educational level?
Yeah. So for me, so in terms of the mentorship that I got and the support that I got, the people that mentored me and supported me, none of them, I think, had any kind of criteria in terms of how they give back. And that's how I was taught, and that's how I give back. So in terms of the Umibo Unite organization that I talked about, it targets, young Nigerians, both in Nigeria and also in the diaspora, globally, right? And then MedShare is global and worldwide. And then obviously Kennesaw State University, UGA, Georgia Tech, these schools are very diverse in terms of, the opportunities that they provide to the students. And that's, Braven, Braven organization caters more to, minorities, but so that to make sure that we're also putting in the extra effort where effort is needed. We don't want to minimize that, but at the same time, I'm very open in terms of how I give back and how I support, just because, again, like I said, the way it was taught to me and the way it was given for me was very open, and and I want to also do that for other people.
Absolutely. No, and it's everything. I mean, we talk about mentorship a lot on this show, but I've yet to speak to a decision maker, director, executive VP on the Results Loading podcast who has specifically and outright said, I never had a mentor. Like, it's one of the most important and valuable things that you can have in terms of your career growth.
Yes.
And I think with the initiatives that you're driving, you're just exponentially increasing these kids' chances of being successful, and not only giving them the insights and the tips and the tricks, but your passion as well. It's like, man, work can be, I mean, obviously work isn't awesome all the time, but it's like, look how much fun you're having as well, doing
Yes.
the day to day and then helping others. I mean, helping others grow is also one of the most valuable experiences that one can have, especially coming from someone like you who's seen so much, right?
Yes. And it's amazing because as you and I were talking or communicating back and forth, one of the questions, one of the very insightful questions I think you had was when you asked a question that had to do with when did that shift happen for you, right? And I started to reflect on that over the past couple of weeks in preparation for this conversation or interview. For me, it was, I would say, probably 10 years ago when, because I've had a lot of roles where I've been an individual contributor, and also had roles where I've led teams. But after having both, about 10 years ago was when it clicked for me, to where it was, man, it's not really just about what you do as one person. It's about how you can influence a team to achieve a common goal, right? It's about the people. It's about the people. So how do you help people grow? And at the same time, in helping them grow, provide them with challenges that you feel as a mentor or as a as a direct manager or whatever role that you find yourself in. It's about creating an environment where people can work together, people can come to work and long for something, want to be a part of something. And I think when that shift happened for me, putting all these different passions together in terms of bringing teams together, communicating, and making sure that I'm being very strategic in terms of how I communicate goals, how I communicate what the future looks like with that team, and also empowering them as a group of people, that servant leadership, providing them with what they need when they need it to accomplish that common goal. That was the big shift for me, which is the people, empowering your people, helping them grow so much that they do not want to leave because of the culture you have created. It's just amazing.
Or, and I agree with everything you said, but or that they have to leave because they've reached a certain level and when it's time for them to move on and experience something new as well, right?
Absolutely. And you also, as a leader, being okay with that and also
Yes.
supporting them through that change because regardless of what happens in life, everybody is on their individual journey. So being able to recognize where someone is in their journey, supporting them and doing everything that you possibly can do for someone who really, really wants it, and then if they don't want it, it's also okay, right? Everybody's different and everybody is at a different time in their journey, but doing right by people, I think it's one of the, I think, funnest things about being a leader, and also leading large organizations and leading large groups of people and motivating large groups of people to deliver on one goal.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a great point. One of the most fun things about being a leader and being a mentor is not only helping those who need your help and who have sought help or sought out help with you, but watching them succeed as well. Even if it's something as simple as helping your little brother improve his resume and then watching him get a job. Like
Yes.
having a part in that, it's extremely rewarding. It's extremely valuable, and what I've found is in helping you learn new things, and you really sometimes forget how much you know until you're sitting there talking with somebody who knows less than you, and you're trying to walk them through things and help them, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and it's a great exercise on both sides because obviously whoever you're working with is receiving invaluable information from someone who has this extensive experience, but also for you, it really gives the mentor an opportunity to really stretch their legs and demonstrate not necessarily how much you know, but how you're able to articulate it in a way that will provide value to the person
Mhm.
you're trying to help, and then watching them take that information and go and be successful on their own. And I think
Yes.
that's what you're trying to say. And I agree with you entirely, in terms of how fun it can be in watching others succeed that you had some element of involvement with.
Yes, yes, and I think that's a good balance, though. Just like you were talking about, we were talking about the employee situation, whereby you coach people, you develop people. Sometimes they leave and sometimes they stay. That is an individual decision that they have to make on their journey, and you have to be okay with being happy for them, either way that goes, right? The same also happens in terms of. Leadership or you being part of an organization. You know um I've had the opportunity to go through, work for different organizations, and also different leaders. People are different, and you go from maybe working in an organization whereby you know the leader is like Caesar, where you have celebrity football players singing happy birthday to a leader in a publicly traded company versus, leaders who, like you can see that care about you. You know what I mean? They care about your well-being. They want you to succeed. They give you the right exposure. They guide you. They push you to your limits. And I mean, not to your limits technically, but like they push you because they see the potential in you. So that's, two different things. And that's what kind of helps me in terms of, deciding, for me, like what type of organization that I want to be part of, as I continue to grow my career and also help other people, shape their careers. So that's just how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the Carl Star Group, for example, and you're a director and you have a team working beneath you, how are you fostering that? I mean, are you looking at that from before you even hired your team and ensuring that there's buy-in, that they're going to be a good cultural fit? I mean, how are you ensuring that the attitude and approach to, the team that you're leading at the moment is all in on pretty much everything that we've just been discussing the last half hour?
Yes, without going into specifics about, my company as a whole, but you always want to, as a leader, currently, part of our process is we do assessment tests to understand what's your personality like. What is that like, right? How would you kind of get along with the team, right? Yes, it's not just all what you have on your resume. Resumes are great. Years of experience are great, but we also want to see how you would work and collaborate with a team, because you know, in this day and age, it's all about collaboration. It's all about teamwork, and different people collaborate in different ways. They bring different acumen. They bring different experiences. They bring different backgrounds to a team, and that's what makes a team a great team, having that diverse, merge, coming together to help you deliver goals, because it helps you check, your pros and your cons as you're going through that team. But yes, I think culture is very important. I think that the way one interacts with a team, or their ability to interact with their teams, both in person and also on Teams or Google or whatever, is very, very important in addition to their resume. So, I always, like to go through that cycle to make sure that as you interview someone, that they won't just only be a fit resume wise, but personality wise, goal wise, and how they would interact with everyone else on the team to deliver the goals.
Absolutely. And you're described as a visionary culture architect. Are you able to share a specific story where you drove significant cultural shift within the team or organization, if possible? Can you think of a
Yes.
specific example?
Oh, so many of them. I love driving culture. One of the things that I've been known for is I've been one of those people to go like, well, if I don't like it, let me go. If I don't like it, I'm gonna go fix it. Right? It's one thing to, it's called, going below the line and complaining about something. And there's another piece of it to say, you know what, I don't like this thing. And if I don't like it, what am I going to do about it? Some people just want to complain and sit on the sidelines. I'm one of those people, just naturally, whether you can tell or not, I jump in, right? As long as there's data, as long as there's great people that want to work hard and get the job done, we're going to get it done. Whether it's automation, AI, analysis, continuous improvement, whatever it is, we are going to drive it and we're going to make it happen. And in terms of innovation or being that cultural ambassador, I just like good change. Good change that is important to the people that you are serving is what I like to do.
No doubt. And you mentioned data, and supply chain is, as you know, all about data. I mean, there's so many insights in data that have been previously untapped, as you know. And you mentioned AI and AI integration and whatnot. But switching gears a little bit, I mean, how are you using data to inform your strategic decisions? And are there particular, platforms or whatnot that you're relying in order to really optimize your day-to-day operations? Obviously, you have the team locked in. You're maximizing efficiency. You're an ambassador for change. You've created this excellent cultural environment. How are we leveraging data and technology to, handle that side of the business and ensuring that maximum efficiency in the day to day?
Yes, so I'm going to speak in general terms, just because, the data piece is very important. And I
Of course.
think a lot of companies, both, private, public, a lot of companies struggle with making what I would call well and informed decisions that are, you know, not the ego, the VP's ego, or
Yes.
like, or the senior vice president, what he's wanted to do since he was an intern, or like data-driven decisions that make sense,
Right.
right? And when you come to that, there's so many different companies, like, the SAPs of the world, JDE Edwards, the Palantirs, there's this wonderful company called Observata in supply chain. They have this AI piece that's just wonderful that helps you, optimize a lot of things in supply chain. And you have companies like Praxi that optimize tiered management systems in distribution, and like they are killing it in that space in terms of making data available for leaders to be able to make really good decisions. And the AI tools with it kind of learn. They do the machine learning piece that as you collect data, you learn as it goes, and it even gets to the point where it starts making suggestions to say, hey, for this day, for this operating day, with these conditions, these variables, I suggest you do XYZ to even optimize even better. So when it comes to data, there are lots of companies that are doing really great things, out there, BGR, can have some of these partners supply. There's lots of companies that are doing really, really great things out there, but I think data mining is key. Did a tour of Geek Plus here in Atlanta a few months ago. Some of the way that they are collecting data, day-to-day data from your warehouse operations, and being able to turn that into actionable items that you can go execute, whether from a robotic standpoint or whether from an automation, AI investment, CapEx, as labor continues to be in shortage in this day and age, or less and less of this generation wanting to do warehouse work. Everybody wants to be a influencer, or some kind of creative or TikTok. Nobody wants to go to the warehouse. So we have to, as leaders of the next, generation of supply chain, the next generation of distribution, the next generation of operations, the strategy and procurement and the CapEx and all of that, we have to start to think about how do we empower our people to be ready for that next phase? Because a lot of people are just scared of AI. A lot of people are just scared of automation. I'm not scared of automation, but I'm more thinking of how can we work with our universities, right, to upskill folks that are coming into the workforce, right, to make sure that they have the right skills in the first place, right? Also looking at how do you look at an operation and say, okay, what portion of this operation can I automate, and think about what are the things that I can do to help the folks that I currently have to get their green belt certifications, to get their bachelor's degree, to get their, certifications in AI, get all these different things, Power BI that they are going to need for the next century. Instead of just sitting back and complaining about it, let us do something about it today.
Well, the innovation is here, right? And we've figured out that there's so much data and there's so many insights and key points that live within the data that we haven't had that instant access to before.
Yes.
With semantic layers and artificial intelligence and automation, if you have, tens of thousands of line items of resources and materials or whatnot, and it takes a data scientist maybe 4 or 5 weeks to go out and pull those insights, the data is old now, and now with the innovation and technology, artificial intelligence, obviously, I mean, data is as valuable as gold to these companies, because
Yes.
you can get some of these insights in seconds, and then
Yes.
in turn get those analytics, the predictive, there's the predictive analytics piece, especially in the supply chain. Oh, there's weather coming in the Northeast. Let's send these orders to the warehouse in the Midwest where there's not going to be as much weather, for example, or, there was a hurricane a few months ago. How are we going to maneuver that? How are we going to keep the trucks on the road, for example? There's so much information that can be harnessed to keep things moving when, unprecedented events take place. And I think really it's going to be really revolutionary for the future and the future of supply chain as a whole, and as well as operations, just because there's access to these insights and predictive analytics now in such a short amount of time that we weren't privy to before this.
Yes, you are absolutely 100% right. And it's interesting because you talk about predictive. It was interesting because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, Ethan, who's the CEO of this company called Route 42. And what they do is like they plug in to your existing infrastructure and they pre-read all the radio waves and how your motors vibrate. And based on how they vibrate over a elongated period of time, they can predict the failure ahead of time for that piece of equipment. That is amazing.
It's incredible.
Amazing technology, right? I mean, think about that. When you can predict, like when your conveyor belt will go down, when you can predict, when your supply chain interruption will happen, and already plan ahead of time to have some kind of solution put in place to address that bump in your supply chain. That is the world that we're living in, whether people like it or not. I mean, COVID showed us that, right? I was on a SWAT team that helped supply, COVID vaccination, let me say, infrastructure during that time, right? Infrastructure during that time, and it was a very tough time for every supply chain. It was a SWAT team of specialists that was put together to help deliver something for a wonderful nation and support and help people. But it also helped you see all the gaps that are in the entire supply chain, right? And also because you see those gaps in that, as a leader in supply chain, whenever I'm exposed to anything or any kind of information, I'm already thinking, okay, what actions can we take, right? Number one, to make sure that we're listening, we're digesting the information, but at the same time, we're just not sitting there just taking it more information. Now let's go do, right? Let's go put something in place to make sure that when, based on the information that we have, we can hopefully see some of these disruptions ahead of time and be able to effectively plan and execute on that.
Yeah. And, to your point, the supply chain is so fragile. And if we're able to find small insights and analytics that can help prevent some sort of catastrophe, or not even a catastrophe, just maybe a lead time delay by 3-4 days, I mean, it saves hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year if you're privy to those insights and analytics 365 days a year.
Yes.
Even if you're able to pull out some sort of tip, it's like, hey, this is going to save you 3 days worth of lead times, or this warehouse will go without inventory for less time if you do X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's only a few $1,000s, a few $100,000 at a time, but if you start giving yourself the opportunity to understand where there will be problems, to your point, the savings are monumental, especially when you can make those additional plans to avoid catastrophe, whether it's a big problem or a small problem in the supply chain at any given time. And it's really fantastic.
Absolutely. To your point, you think about it. We live in a society where it's almost like Amazon is king, right?
Right.
Everyone has now been programmed, and I don't want to use the word program, and I don't mean it in any way negative, right? But let me say it this way: everyone's expectation now is that I can now order something, and not only can I get it in 2 days, but possibly I can get it in a day.
Yeah, that same day, literally later this afternoon.
In front of my house, this afternoon. So that is the mentality of the customer, or the expectation of the customer that you're dealing with. So now it has become even more imperative that we utilize data to make quick and effective decisions, that we're now using a lot of data analytics. Gone are the days where we would say it would be okay to wait 6 months to get the information. No. 6 months, you're already too late to enter the market.
Way too late. Well, no, then your competitors are way ahead of you by that time.
Way ahead of you.
Everyone else is adopting.
They've planned and they've put in all the AI software there is to predict that disruption. And while you're trying to figure it out, they already planned for it. And they're right there in front of the doorstep with the product in front of the customer. And my job as a supply chain leader is to make sure that I am in front of your door, presenting you with that product, that right product that you need at the right time. That's
When I
my
say
job.
I'm going to be.
Yes, yes. Yes, absolutely. That's my job.
Exactly, my friend. And hey, last question here before I let you go.
Yes.
In terms of your professional and personal achievements, and there have been many, which one is the one that you're most particularly fond of or proud of, and why does it specifically stand out to you?
Um, I would say I would answer that question in two folds, if you don't mind.
Please.
On what end, one end, it would be when I look back and currently, right? When I look back and I think about the number of people that I have been able to either influence or add value to not just their lives or their families or their careers by supporting them somehow, um, I feel good, right? Like deep down in my soul, as a human being, as a person, I feel good that, I've been able to support that many people in my, 20-year career run. And I continue to pray that I'm going to have another 20 to 30-year run of continue to support people and grow. That's on one end. But on the other end, um, I am one of the biggest things that I am proud of as a human being is my family. The fact that I've been able to work this long and being able to provide for my family, my wonderful wife, who's a very driven gynecologist, Ijoma, uh, great at what she does. Sometimes I go like, how is it that you cut people open all day? So I am not allowed to have a bad day because,
Of
what do
course.
you have against someone that's cutting people and stitching them open every day, So that's tough, right? And my wonderful three boys, those are my biggest, my family is my biggest achievement, if you will.
Wonderfully said, and I couldn't agree with you more, my friend. I think that's just fantastic, and I want to wrap up by saying thank you and congratulations on your success so far.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you taking the time to share some of these insights, especially pertaining to leadership and mentorship. Really
Yes.
valuable. I think more, managers and people in general can strive to have a similar approach to you in terms of helping people and bringing value, and loving watching people grow. It's
Yes.
really important, especially these days, if you will. And
Mhm.
thanks so much for sharing all of these tips, tricks, and insights here on the Results Loading podcast. And good luck to you.
Thank you so much, man. Like I said, I continue to have great leaders that continue to mentor me as I continue my journey. I continue to learn every day, so whether it's the, HR manager or my VP that's coaching me every day, or the people that I have the opportunity to lead, mentor, or coach. I think we all, there's so much, space for all of us to coexist together, and also bring our whole selves to work, enjoy what we do, and not it be like, your regular 9 to 5, but like a place that you go to and actually contribute, grow yourself and also grow other people. So I've been blessed, thank you, Michael, for, having me. This has been phenomenal, having the opportunity to talk to you. But, I am looking so much. I just keep, looking at the future. The future is so much bright. I don't know what the future holds, but I am very excited and looking forward to working with you more.